most of us, including me, have been told that you need to save your money to get ahead, buy a nice house, get a nice car, and live the lifestyle that you want, right? And that's what most people that I know do. They get their paychecks, put it in their bank accounts, and then do nothing with it. What if I told you that leaving your money in your bank account is making you lose money? You do not want to save your money. Hey guys, Matthew here. In this video, I'm gonna cover what happens to your money when it's in your bank account. Number one, we're gonna talk about how your bank is using your money. And number two, we're gonna talk about how leaving your money in your bank account is actually losing you money. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video where we talk about exactly where to put that money instead. Before we get into that, let's talk about why you might want to leave your money in your bank account. One of the only reasons that you should be leaving any sort of money in your bank account is for an emergency fund. An emergency fund is exactly that, money that you've set aside for an emergency. It doesn't just have to be for unexpected expenses. You know, what if all of a sudden you lost your job and you don't have any income? It's usually recommended that you have 3 to 6 months of income set aside for yourself in the event of an emergency, unexpected expense, or drop off in income. So now let's talk about what happens to your money when you do leave it in your bank account. So part of how banks will actually earn money themselves is taking your deposits and loaning it out to other people. Every time you put money into your savings account, in your checkings account, they then leverage it to loan it out to other people. That then allows other customers and other clients to borrow money to fund their purchases. Your mortgage, your car loan, your student loans have all been loaned out to you using this sort of method. In exchange for using your deposits to loan out to other customers, what you get in return is a very small interest rate. And that interest rate might be anywhere between 0.01% up to 1 or 2%. So at least you're getting something in return, right? Now, reason number two that you don't want to leave your money in your savings account, and the real killer here, is inflation. According to Investopedia, inflation is the decline of purchasing power of a given currency over time. Inflation is generally caused by the decrease in value of a currency. This causes prices of everyday goods to increase because now you have to pay more for the same thing. This tends to happen because central banks keep printing money to create more. And because there's more supply in the circulation, that generally causes prices to decrease. Typically, a country's central bank will have a target on inflation, something like 2%. And that's what it is right now in Canada and the US. This target basically makes sure you don't have to pay $1 million for a cup of coffee. And the way that central banks keep this target and inflation in check is through what's called monetary policy. Monetary policy involves influencing the supply and demand of money through interest rates. Interest rates will determine how cheap or how expensive it is to borrow money from banks. When interest rates are low, it encourages people to borrow and buy big ticket items like a house. When interest rates are high, it becomes much more expensive to borrow money and encourages people to save instead. Interest rates these days are at an all-time low at 0.25%. That's both in the US and in Canada. And it's basically free money since the cost to borrow is so low.
It's free real estate.
So what? How does this have anything to do with the money in your savings account?
Remember that small interest rate that you're getting on your savings? Well, it's getting destroyed by inflation. So let's see how. Target inflation is 2%. That means that your groceries, your coffee, your everyday expenses will increase 2% every single year. Your savings account, your interest rate might be 0.05%. So right away, you're already losing 1.95% of your money every single year. So what would that look like if you left your money in your bank account over 45 years? Well, I did the math. So let's check it out. If inflation kept steady at 2% for 45 years, that same iPhone that cost you $1,000 today would actually cost you $2,437.85. How did that 0.05% interest rate stack up? Well, not great. That 0.5% interest that you're getting on your savings had grown your money over 45 years to $1,025 $22.73. Over 45 years. That means that inflation outpaced your savings by over 140%. Now your purchasing power is 2.5 times less than what it was. And that's just because your money sat there. It did nothing. So your money is not safe at the bank after all, and it's no wonder why the rich don't leave their money sitting in their bank accounts. All right, well, what can you do with your money instead? If you're lucky enough, or if you take advantage of a promotion, you might land a high interest savings account. Now this is the same thing as your normal savings account, but has a much higher interest rate applied to it. Usually it's about 1 to 2%. Never really gets any higher than that. So if it's on the lower end, still doesn't help our cause. You're still gonna be losing money to inflation every year. And most of the time, these are only promotional rates. So they might last 30 days, 90 days, maybe a year. And then it reverts back to the normal savings rate. In reality, what we should be doing with that savings is invest it. That's the only option that will allow you to outpace inflation with your savings. Some of you might be turned off already thinking,
why would I invest my money? That's so risky.
And you're right, it can be risky. If you try to day trade, time the market, pull out, absolutely. But for the average person that simply puts their money in their investment accounts, lets it grow, lets it accrue over the years, then it is great. And let me show you why. Since 1916, the Dow Jones, which is made up of the 30 largest companies in the US, is up over 25,000%. If you had invested just $1,000 back then, you would now have over $255,000. That's just for doing nothing. Just leaving your money as it is and allowing it to grow over time. So let's take a deep dive into those numbers. Now this tool is gonna let us play around with some numbers to see what type of return we might get based on our investments. So I'll start here with a 45-year time frame, which is usually how long people will spend in the workforce. Let's go with a $5,000 initial investment. Next, let's set our rate of return. This will set at 8.5%, which is the historic return of the S&P 500 per year. And I know you're smart, so you can see where I'm going here. You're probably already thinking, damn, that's already a lot higher than that 0.05% in my savings account, and already 4 times more than inflation. So check this out. Without putting in another dollar, it grows to $46,891. That's an 838% rate of return over 45 years, thanks to compound interest. So let's see what happens here when we actually put money into it. So look at this. If you put in just $100 per month into this account, it becomes almost $1 million. And the point that you should take away from all this is that for doing the same thing that you would have with your savings account, just leaving your money as it is, you're gonna walk away well ahead. All right, so for those of you that have stuck around to the end of the video here, we're now gonna talk about where exactly you should park that money if you are looking to invest it. Now, this is not financial advice for everyone's specific situation, but this gives you a general idea of where you should start looking if you're just starting out. Number 1 on the list is ticker SPY. This investment fund tracks the performance of the S&P 500. This is what gets you that historical 8.5% rate of return. Now this has 500 of the largest companies around the world, making it very diverse. It's diversified across sectors, across industries, and across regions as well. It's super easy to get into this investment since it is the most popular investment. It typically has very high volumes, and you can purchase this through any brokerage. I'll link some brokerages down below that I like, so you can start to check those out as well. Second investment that you could take a look at is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. That is ticker DIA. Now this investment is made up of the 30 largest companies in the US. It's very exclusive and is really a financial staple. If you hear someone talk about a blue chip stock, it's probably in the Dow Jones. Now this investment fund and the S&P 500 are extremely similar. They have very similar, almost identical rate of returns over the long run, and you'd be great in placing your investment in any one of these. Number 3 is the NASDAQ, ticker QQQ, aka the Qs. This is the more high-flying tech stocks that we always hear about, like the Apples, Amazons, Google, Facebook. So this will track the performance of the NASDAQ. Now because of this, it is a little bit more volatile, so it does have more ups and downs with it, but with more risk comes more return. And because of that, this one averages a little bit more than the other two at 9.5% per year. And lastly, the final place that you can start to look at is Bitcoin or crypto. I won't go into too much detail here explaining what Bitcoin and crypto is. Most of us have seen the headlines about its crazy rise and fall and rise again. For those that are a little bit more adventurous, you can think of adding Bitcoin or other cryptos to your portfolio. Personally, I have about 1 to 2% of my portfolio currently allocated to Bitcoin at this point. I'm looking to add some more over the next couple years. That's where we should be parking our money instead of losing money to inflation every single year. All right, guys, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. If you have any questions, let me know down below. Thanks for tuning in and hope to see you in the next one.